Hello everyone, my name is Stephen Bell, aka Stakui, and this week we're going to be continuing our conversation with Dorian Newcomb, the art director of Aura History Untold. Last week we went and learned a little bit about Dorian's background as well as history in the games industry, and we also talked about Aura's incredible living world at a high level. So definitely, if you have not seen that, go back and check that out. But this week, what we're going to be doing is diving deeper into one of Aura's most impressive features. So without further ado, let's go ahead and continue to talk about their living world. Immersion, when we're talking about a historical game, is something that is extremely critical in grand strategy. That is one of the biggest parts that is necessary in any of these types of productions. So I'm excited to jump into the next segment that we're going to be talking about with Aura's living world and just how it all comes together. So I have to ask, what was your approach to designing the natural world regarding biomes, forests, beasts, all the different things of the world?
It's a huge task. We have a large art board, lots of references, lots of I think it's just immersing yourself in the different landscapes, in landscape painters of the time, like Dutch landscape painters, the Hudson River School painters, Impressionists, looking at the way that color creates form and the way that the light hits the surface. Lots of time spent trying to art it up, honestly, and it's really pays off, but sometimes, after looking at the same piece of art and the same inspiration, the references, and going on a hike, you're like, will we ever get there? And I think this past 6 months, we've been feeling like we've been turning the corner, and we're really excited to be sharing it with folks now.
Awesome. Did you go to any museums or anything for inspiration? So is that one of the things that you did? Or were you just no, we're going to be cycling through everything on the computer, just hours of art downloaded onto this file, and we're going to look?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because there's a lot of lockdown when we would have been wanting to travel.
Right, pandemic.
But inspiration, for artists, and I think for teams, inspiration has to be eating. It's not an option. And so we all have different diets, right? Some folks will watch their favorite film 20 times. Other folks will, go out and landscape paint themselves. I took a trip to Spain last year, and it was you have to eat. You have to digest. You have to have the inspiration always present. And then when you work together and you're inspired, that's when you really bounce off each other. So it's not an option. Got to be inspired. And to be honest, the other thing is we're really inspired by other games as well. So anytime a new game came out, a strategy game came out the past 5 years, we'd install it, play it, talk about it, because there's a lot of good work being done by people now, some of the best. And I think it's I'm excited about joining in the fray and being a great option for people to play.
Awesome. Now we're talking about inspiration. What is Aura introducing to the grand strategy genre that is going to bring it to the next level of immersion? What is it doing?
It's hard because I get to talk about all the amazing things we're doing graphically to make the world larger, to allow players to see their citizens, to see all of your choices be real. Is really awesome. A lot of times in games in the past I've worked on, you'd build something and you'd see it as an icon. But in our game, you can just zoom in as much as you'd like. And when you build a triumph, it's really integrated into the landscape. Your capital will look impressive. There will be a city center that grows. Your city walls I think the city walls are really great. But when we're talking about gameplay and innovation, there's a lot of UX and design work that goes into that, and I'm not going to talk about that now. That's for another section. But I think that it's hard not to bring up because we've really been trying to integrate those two concepts. What is the player's experience? What are the player's choices? And how do they see their choices in the world? And so not only are we trying to make the game beautiful to look at and compelling when you zoom in, but we need to make sure that all the rollovers and the player's choices are clear when you zoom out and play from a distance. And really that has been the constant struggle of creating a world that's believable at a close level and making sure that the world has integrity, and when you zoom out, feels like the world itself, large and inviting to play, maybe dangerous around certain corners, but it needs to be fun to explore. I can't imagine if you make a game about the world and exploration and building something worth having, if you don't make that world exciting to explore, that's pretty tragic. So that's what we're spending a lot of time on. Yeah.
No, I completely understand that. And you already mentioned before when talking about the organic growth and development of roads and how that will grow throughout your empire between all the different buildings and constructions and whatnot that you have. Does that impact anything gameplay wise, the actual roads themselves?
the road networks that you build, your harbors, your airfields, like all of those build connections for trade networks, and even when you find people in the wild that might not have settlements or early developments, they walk along paths. It's sort of like how roads, if you've ever had dogs in your neighborhood, they always follow the same paths. They walk through the same yards. They have routines, right? And people are the same way. And so there's an underlying network where population lives in the landscape. And that's how our roads are generated, which was sort of like a nice revelation when I first started working with Brian Wade. He was the engineer that did a lot of the living world stuff. And the road network underlies all the connections between everything. And we've really tried to lean into that and make sure that when you put a farm down, the farm naturally doesn't grow crops where the roads exist. And,
yeah. I'd like my corn to be dirt-free once I put it in my mouth. I completely understand that. Yes, definitely. And I guess on that note, when talking about the world as it's evolving and changing, we've talked about how it evolves with players' choices and what they're doing. How does that incorporate visual storytelling in order to reflect the historical events and how things are going to change over time? Because it's not like everything is going to be stuck at the exact same time period with you just continuously building out a city.
You start off with really rudimentary materials and architectural designs, like the squared buildings, squared roofs, things that would be very dangerous by today's standards, but were massive upgrades. Things that allow people to cook and to sleep in the same building, right? And then as we go through the game, your architecture ties in with your innovations. As you research things, you'll start to see steeper roofs, different roofing materials, and then the triumphs that you unlock tying in with the resources available to you. So if you have a lot of stone, it's going to be pretty easy to build some of the early triumphs of the game. But as you go on, the scientific things will require research and metals. And so you're exploring the world, discovering new resources that you didn't have before. And then by the modern era, we have things that go into like our imaginations, a little bit more near future stuff where, the all glass skyscrapers and some of the more fantasy ideas of like, I don't know if we have flying cars, but maybe we do. I'm not sure.
Who knows where the game will be here in 5 years? Who knows?
You really have to get there yourself if you want to see it, is all I'm saying. Yeah, but we have the whole game should transform. So over your we have 3 acts of the game that a player plays through. And in the ancient period, there's going to be a lot of things that you recognize. When you get to the Middle Ages and the second act, there's going to be a lot of innovation, age of reason, the age of science and exploration. And when you get to that third act, we are hoping that you get to go past where we are right now. And we want people to be excited about each of those journeys. Because I think, I honestly, I feel the need to be inspired. We were talking about inspiration, it's non-optional. I feel the need to be inspired about where we are in history today. We have never had more advantages than we have right now. And we need more people to be inspired by what we could do. And when you look back at what people did 1,000 years ago with the little that they had, it's up to us to really be inspirations for the next generation. And so I feel like that's kind of why I believe in making games about history and why I particularly believe in this game. It's about becoming what we could be and just recognizing that's a challenge.
It's time for a lightning round with some rapid fire questions. So, are you ready, Dorian?
I'm going to try to be ready.
You do not sound ready. You do not sound ready. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, see, that's a little bit more of the confidence of what I was looking for. Excellent. Now, if you could choose one historical figure that you're going to be pen pals with, who is it going to be?
An answer that's unlikely believed by my friends, but I would want to be pen pals with Jane Austen because she can write beautiful letters. And the letters in her books are the only reason that I have healthy human relationships with people. Because I
don't know as to what I would describe for healthy, but I respect the commitment to it. I will say that.
Sometimes there are things that you think that can only be put down in words, and sometimes writing them freehand and sending them to someone directly creates an experience unlike any other. And I think Pride and Prejudice letter in that book is an inspiration for me to get off my butt and to tell people what I feel and think about them in good ways. Yeah.
All right, I understand that. Okay, your nation only gets one thing. Pyramids of Giza or the Burj Khalifa?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I have to go with the Pyramids of Giza. Only
Why?
Because the structure was so austere and modern. You know, when the pyramids were finished, it was polished limestone, and it was capped with solid gold. So it almost, you know, it's such a singularly unique structure. Also, that gold was stolen, right? Like
everything was stolen.
The first time there were no
Everything
longer
was stolen.
pharaohs in Egypt, someone was figuring out how to climb up that polished limestone to take that gold cap off the top. But you can only imagine, like, moving into visiting Egypt and having never seen a structure that large made by humans, and then seeing the gold on top of it and thinking, this place will never disappear. These people will always be here. And just that search for permanence and meaning is so, I mean, obviously,
It did disappear for parts of it, but I get exactly from the romantic thought of what you mean.
Exactly, yep.
That's an excellent choice. Now, okay, if you were going to then be living in a historical era, not just with a building or anything like that, where would you go and when, disregarding any potential risks? Like, you're safe no matter where it is you're going.
Yeah, I have good dentistry, and if
No, you're covered. You're covered across the board. Perfect health.
So for me, I want to say it's probably around 1510, sometime, somewhere, anywhere in Europe. Now, travel would be a pain. So it's like, would I be in the German city-states? Would I try to find a prince that would take me in? Would I be in Italy? But the idea of, like, being able to see Michelangelo, see Leonardo do their work, have a conversation with Martin Luther, and find out what it was like right before people were reading their scriptures in their language, right? Massively powerful, having control over what you read. Being able to see Shakespeare done, live. I don't know if I'd have to, like, if the genie were to come up and say, you got to do it now, I'd need a little bit of time with Wikipedia. But sometime in that period where all of these ideas that were about to shape the next 300 or 400 years were going off, I would love to be able to walk around and see if anyone knew how important their work was going to be for the generations that followed. Not necessarily that I'm seeing the only creative people in the world, but being able to see how they view themselves and see if they had any context would be fascinating.
I get that. No, I totally understand that. That's fascinating. And I guess lastly then, if you could travel back in time to witness one specific event, not just with a whole bunch of people, but an event as it happened, what would that be?
Oh my goodness. Well, I sort of feel like everyone would have their religious moment in history that they want to verify. You know, whether it was, and I think, like, those are all very personal. And I think that those are not necessarily the most creative, but I feel like curiosity would be satisfied. But to be honest, and this ties back into that being an artist and loving history, I was personally really inspired by Michelangelo's story, because Michelangelo was an artist at a time that was very difficult to be a unique individual in. Like, he was a few of a handful of folks, and he really wanted to be a sculptor. Like, that was all he cared about, and his career got waylaid by doing the Sistine Chapel, which is how most people know him. And there's a story about him working on the Sistine Chapel. He fired a bunch of the people that were supposed to help him. He was doing things that no one really wanted to do. I think he was painting the flood narrative, and it wasn't working. Like, all the figures were the wrong scale. And he was just sort of, Michelangelo was someone that was never really happy with their work as well. And I would really love, whether it was that period of time or the older Michelangelo in his 80s that was reflecting on his work in a different context, meeting him and getting a chance to see, like, what he thought, why he created what he did, what motivated him, and how he dealt with the struggles of the time that he was in. For me, that would be a very personal inspiration.
That is so much of a deeper answer than I anticipated. Mine is literally just the Siege of Vienna 1683 for the largest cavalry charge, because I want to see all the horses run down the hill.
Yeah.
That's it. Yours is way more complex and deeper than what I had.
Well, my runner-up's a little bit more simplistic. Like, I would love to see, there's a David painting of the coronation of Napoleon that was always a nice painting, but when I saw it in person, really changed my view on, like, what art could do. And being able to, like, be at that moment, right before, right at that ascent of Napoleon as emperor, and seeing the creative folks, seeing how France was post-revolution would also be amazing. So that'd be my runner-up. But I think there's a lot, there's so many cool things to see, and so many imaginations, so many places to go with your imagination. Yeah, sorry.
It's awesome. All right, by now I hope that fans are extremely excited to explore the living world when Aura goes and launches this next year, because boy, I know that I sure am. So thanks to Dorian for his time and his fascinating insights regarding this game. Make sure to drop a comment letting us know what part of Aura's living world that you yourself are most excited for, and also what other topics that you would like to see covered in these future Dev Diaries. Make sure to hit that notification bell so that you can always see new videos come up as they drop. And lastly, if you haven't already, please make sure to check out Aura on the social media platform of your choice, because in addition to Aura news and updates, we're also going to be giving away PC Game Pass memberships each week on both Twitter and Facebook. Thank you all once again, and we'll see you next week.